Welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at metadata, but first we're going to be looking at how to make an HTML file. I want to loop back around and work on some metadata though, because I think it's really important for you to see how much is actually going on underneath the hood, how much of the stuff is behind the scenes that you're not really seeing, and how that works. Also, to see that it's everywhere, that it's not something to overlook. A lot of people do all this work on the body and stuff that people are going to see, but all of that encoding on the metadata is really important. So to kick it off, let's make our first HTML file. So I've got Visual Studio open. All I did was open a new file. It's untitled. So I'm going to go up and we're going to save it. Let's call it demo. And we're going to do .html. That's really important. That's going to be how the browser, how the text editor, everything is going to know that is HTML. And it's going to do some special stuff for you so that you don't have to do so much work. So let's go ahead and save it. Cool. So it's got us all set up. And this is going to be a pretty standard icon for you to know that you're dealing with an HTML file. JavaScript files have a JS, and CSS files frequently have ampersand. So we're also going to bring up that boilerplate that we talked about last time. So we're working with HTML5. And there we go. So the cool thing about the boilerplate is you can see the most important things about metadata because it's automatically going to drop it into the head for you. So remember, everything in the head, people are not going to see, at least not in the main browser. So starting off, we have the character encoding. We're doing UTF-8. That's pretty standard for Western English. Just so that you can kind of see the difference, how it might look if you had a different character encoding. Let's check this out. So I'm on the usual MDN, and I wanted to show you a different character set. So the car set, char set, people say different things, it's a character set. This is a value for Japanese. So if you were to use this, the encoding you were doing would convert over to Japanese characters. I'm not exactly sure how it lines over. I hear there's some challenges with keyboards just because it's a pretty big language, but at the same time, that's what would happen, and that's why it's so important that we're using the right character encoding. Next up, we've got viewport. So what you're seeing here is the device width. You could always modify that to change the viewport. The viewport is actually what you're seeing on the screen. So if you change the device width, that will change how it's going to look based on the width of the device. Also, there's an initial scale of 1. You could always make that bigger or smaller, but more or less of the actual document is going to be visible or not, and you might end up with a lot of extra scrolling. We don't like to make people scroll horizontally as much as possible. Vertically is okay, but horizontally is kind of a no-no. Then also we have our title. So our title is going to be what shows up in the tab itself. So let's change it to demo. Save it. And I've got a little go live button. That's just going to open this document in the browser. So then you see demo that we added in there. So that would show up in the actual tab of the browser. Then we're closing out our head with that closing tag. Like I said, backslashes are usually going to signify the end of your closing tag. A good habit to get into early on is whenever you open a tag, go ahead and close it too and work within that. While your editor may help you out with that and remind you that you need to close it at the same time, if for some reason it doesn't, that can cause some serious headaches and a lot of backtracking. Happened to me in the beginning, and it can be a little frustrating. So those are the basics of what we're going to see. Then I also wanted you to see kind of a demo. Like I said, Starbucks is a great site to check out if you want to see some crazy stuff behind the scenes. They're a little bit older company, so they have a massive code base. So there's a lot of stuff to look at if you want to poke around on their site. So I'm going to open Chrome DevTools. Some people call it Chrome Inspector. On pretty much any browser you're using, well, it's always going to be so you're going to hit Control-Shift-I to bring up the DevTools. Just like that. You can also, if you want the long way around, you can always right-click, go to Inspect. It's going to pull it up. So this is DevTools. It's super powerful. There's a lot of stuff you can do in here. Hopefully you're going to be using DevTools a lot. It's a great practice whenever you're tinkering with your HTML and CSS, because you can do a lot of stuff directly in the DevTools without having to go back and forth, seeing how something looks, and going back to your editor, seeing how something looks, and going back. So what we can see right here, I have the elements pulled up right now. The elements is going to give you the actual document, the HTML document. It's also potentially going to give you some CSS too within the styles, because you can select things. So just a quick overview, you can always click that arrow and it's going to let you actually highlight, bring up different properties. You can see some of the CSS there along with the HTML. So you're really honing in, and it's kind of like a magnifying glass. It's kind of a fun one. Then also, whenever you start working on mobile, you can always hit this one and it gives you some mobile views, which is kind of nice. You can always tinker around with that later. We'll do more of that later on. We don't really need it right now. So right now we're still in that mobile mode. That's the full screen. Sorry, I had it backwards. See, I'm on iPhone 6, but I could always switch it over to like an iPad. That's what it's going to look like. Gives you some other ways to look at it. I usually leave it in the mobile view, honestly, just because it lets me hone in on things really easy. So going back, close out the body. This is just so you can see exactly how much potentially can be in the head. Depending on how big a site you're working on, you might be collaborating. Also, maybe just when you're working on yourself, but you really want to do a bunch of work there. Opening up the head, oh boy, this is all in the head. So you're seeing there's some CSS going on, there's their title, the Starbucks Coffee Company. That's what we're seeing up here as well. That's where that's coming from. There's a ton of stuff in here. You could just poke around for a while. A bunch of templates that looks like it's loading through. Again, some more CSS. You can pull that down. Looks like they're pulling in some fonts. There's all kinds of stuff. So have some fun. I always recommend, when in doubt, open up some DevTools. Like, it's great. I'm a big fan of Chrome browser, but on top of that, it's just a good way to get under the hood and really see what's going on. You never know what might be applicable to your own site, a style or a fix, a workaround that somebody used. So check it out. Have a little fun with it. And then, of course, just so you can see it, the body. You're seeing a lot of these elements we were talking about in the last video. Of course, we'll deal with that in probably the next section or the one after most of this stuff. But yeah, have some fun with it. Play with those arrows, opening and closing things, and see what's going on, alright? As always, please subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.